Welcome into the channel, everyone. My name is Kyle Yates. In today's video, I'm taking a look at my top 50 Dynasty running back rankings here as we go into week 2 of the NFL preseason. Let's get to it. All right, top 50 Dynasty running back rankings. I thought this would be a good exercise to be able to just kind of slow down here as we go into the NFL season and be able to take a look at kind of the macro view from a Dynasty angle. Dynasty is where you keep the same players on your roster year in, year out. And so you need to value these players a little bit differently than you do in your redraft leagues. Let's kick it off here at number 50. That's going to be Dylan Sampson, running back for the Cleveland Browns. We see the change of pace ability, right? Quinshon Judkins is going to lead this backfield, but this is Dylan Sampson rotating in as a pass-catching running back, provides some burst there in the open field. Going to be really limited as far as the offensive structure, but if we do see a quarterback upgrade in 2027, he could climb. Emmett Johnson, rookie running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. Tank Bigsby at 48, running back for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll come back and talk about him. Jordan Mason at 47 for the Minnesota Vikings. Nick Singleton for the Tennessee Titans, rookie running back out of Penn State at 46. Tyrone Tracy Jr. at 45 for the New York Giants. Chris Rodriguez Jr. at 44 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Woody Marks at 43 for the Houston Texans. Tyler Algier for the Arizona Cardinals at 42. And then J.K. Dobbins at 41 for the Denver Broncos. I'm going to go just 50 through 41, and then we'll stop. We'll talk about a few of these players, and then we'll go 40 through 31, and so on and so forth. All right, so I said we would talk about Tank Bigsby. I'll circle him here, and we will talk about him as one of the most valuable handcuff running backs in fantasy football here this year. I think that if we were to see Saquon Barkley miss time with an injury, then we would see Tank Bigsby into that top 20, top 15 territory in the rankings. He's not going to be a player that catches passes out of the backfield, but Jalen Hurts also doesn't feature running backs out of the backfield as receivers. So Bigsby, his ability in the open field to make players miss, one of the most efficient running backs when he does get the ball. I think that we could see a big performance from Bigsby here in 2026 if Saquon misses time. And obviously we don't want that to happen. We don't want to see that happen, but we do have to plan for it in fantasy football. Then he is one of my top players to go buy in Dynasty because of him heading into free agency next offseason. He is going to be a player that I think will be more highly coveted than people are anticipating. So this is a player that right now at 48 in Dynasty rankings, if he does land and get a featured job next offseason, he's going to skyrocket up the rankings. And so a player that I want to go and acquire right now for dirt cheap in my Dynasty leagues before his value increases, because if Saquon misses time, Bigsby shows out, then his value increases. Then he gets a feature job and signs a nice deal in free agency. Then suddenly you're not going to be able to get Bigsby in your Dynasty leagues, right? People are going to be valuing him differently. This is, I think, one of the last times that you can go acquire Tank Bigsby in Dynasty right now. Jordan Mason at 47, a player that I've debated on, do I move him higher, right? Age and just his experience in the NFL kind of puts him behind some of these other players, but I do think that Mason could be the starting running back for the Minnesota Vikings this year. In fact, I'm projecting it that way. You'll see Aaron Jones rotate in as a pass catcher and change of pace option at this stage of his career, but Jordan Mason, incredibly efficient when he does get the opportunities. We could absolutely see him in a featured role here this year in this offense that should be much better than what it was last year. So Jordan Mason, a player that also as a Dynasty buy, I do not hate, especially at this cost. Let's talk about Chris Rodriguez Jr. here at 44. We've talked about him plenty on the channel, but a player that I do think will be the first and second down option for the Jacksonville offense this year, is going to be the red zone option, is going to be the goal line guy. And for a team that is going to be in the red zone and near the goal line continuously, then that is a player that I think that we should value in Dynasty. This is not near his expert consensus ranking. His ADP is not near here as well. So Chris Rodriguez Jr., a player that I am circling as well, like several players in this tier that I want to go acquire right now because their value is super low, and I think it's only going to continue to rise. Woody Marks, a player that I'm actually considering selling in Dynasty right now. This is lower than his ECR at 43. We saw last year the struggles that he has as a pure runner, right? The vision issues that we saw play out on tape were ones that caused Houston to go into this offseason and say, we need to upgrade this running back position, and we cannot rely on Woody Marks as our feature running back next year. And so now he's going to be in this pass catching role, but he wasn't super effective or efficient in that role last year anyway. And pass protection, is that a weak suit, a strong suit for him that really needs to be fully on display here this year? So I think that there's a world that Woody Marks ends up as a third string running back by the time, by this time next year. I don't think that he's going to, supplant David Montgomery in this offense. I've talked about that in just the video that I just did the other day. Make sure that you go listen to that one. But I think Woody Marks is a player that I think the value is only going to continue to drop from here. And so if you do have players in your league that managers in your league that are still optimistic on him, then I'm willing to go sell right now. Let's go into the top 40 through 31. We'll go Rachaad White, running back for the Washington Commanders. Then we go Kenneth Gainwell for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 39. Jonah Coleman at 38 for the Denver Broncos. Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt at 37 for the Washington Commanders. Tony Pollard at 36 for the Tennessee Titans. Rico Dowdle at 35 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chuba Hubbard at 34 for the Carolina Panthers. Ramondre Stevenson at 33 for the New England Patriots. Jonathan Brooks at 32 for the Carolina Panthers. And then Kyle Monangai, currently dealing with a hyperextended knee, is going to miss a couple weeks. Should be back before the start of the season for the Chicago Bears at 31. All right. Jonah Coleman is a player that I had at RB2 in this draft class. Going into the NFL draft, kept him right there. I did not think that the acquisition cost for the Seattle Seahawks of the first round pick for Jadarian Price really moved me off of. Price is still very unproven, and it could work out certainly, but it's not the most likely outcome. The tape that Jonah Coleman put out there at Washington was absolutely fantastic. Now, is he going to break off 60-yard runs continuously? No, but he is going to be incredibly effective and efficient in between the tackles. He's a phenomenal pass protector, and he's a great receiver out of the backfield. So I think that there is a world where if J.K. Dobbins misses time this year, again with an injury, then we could easily see Jonah Coleman step into a larger role in this offense and produce with it and produce in a big way. So a player that if you did get Jonah Coleman in your rookie drafts, congratulations. I think that was an excellent pick. I think it's going to pay off for you sooner than later. Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt at 37, a player where, we're talking about a post-hype sleeper, someone who had all the hype surrounding him last year as a 7th-round rookie. It got out of control. And listen, he did perform well in his situation and what was happening there in Washington last year. It was a gross situation where Jaden Daniels is injured for the majority of the year. Cliff Kingsbury's offense went stale. But yet Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt still showed that he can be a lead back in this in the NFL. Now, he needs to improve on his pass catching, and he has a very, very small sample size in college, so it's not a guarantee that he does that. I think we will see Rachaad White factor into this offense in some way, shape, or form, but I do not anticipate that it is going to be Rachaad White taking the lead role in this backfield at any point this year. I don't see that happening. So Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt's going to get the chance to begin the year, and I think he's going to perform with it. Kaytron Allen, a rookie running back out of Penn State, a 6th-round pick. I am not concerned about him at all, taking work away from Bill. So a player, Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, right now, undervalued in redraft, going in at running back 35, 36 in latest ADP that I've seen. So a player that I have several spots higher in redraft ADP. And from a dynasty standpoint, this is another player where I'm like, I think this might be your last chance to go get Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt for dirt cheap in your leagues. Would not be shocked if he is much higher than this next month in dynasty rankings. Let's go talk about the Carolina Panthers backfield. I had Chuba Hubbard at 34 and I had Jonathan Brooks at 32. Chuba Hubbard, I think, is on his way out of this backfield, leading it. Now, the question is just going to be, can Jonathan Brooks stay healthy? And I think if he stays healthy, then this is easily going to be Jonathan Brooks' backfield by week 5. Obviously, Chuba Hubbard dealing with a hamstring injury right now, but that's not going to cost him into the season. So I think it's all about health and durability for Jonathan Brooks, which are two things that are not in his favor, right? This is very difficult for a player to come back from 2 torn ACLs in the same knee. We have not seen him really on an NFL field. And so if it goes his way, if he can stay healthy, he has the talent level to be a solid contributor for fantasy football. But this is just the durability concerns, and factoring that into his rankings here at 32 in my latest dynasty rankings. Kyle Monangai at 31. A lot of people want to push him higher than this in dynasty rankings. I can't get there. A backup running back, I believe, in my opinion. He can catch the football out of the backfield as a receiver, but it's not his strength. And as long as DeAndre Swift is here in this offense, then he's going to play second fiddle. Now, going into 2027, I think that could be a situation where we see Chicago go big name hunting at the running back position, really kind of shore that up if they want to move on from DeAndre Swift, and then go, hit one of these free agent running backs that's coming up to really kind of push this team over the top with Caleb Williams still on the rookie contract. that would be a situation to monitor. So I don't think Kyle Monangai is going to be the lead running back for the Chicago Bears anytime soon, aside from a DeAndre Swift injury. Let's go into the top 30. We got Jaylen Warren, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Zach Charbonnet for the Seattle Seahawks at 29, RJ Harvey at 28 for the Denver Broncos, Blake Corum at 27 for the Los Angeles Rams, David Montgomery for the Houston Texans at 26, DeAndre Swift at 25 for the Chicago Bears, 24, Josh Jacobs for the Green Bay Packers, Bashal Tutin at 23, Jadarian Price for the Seattle Seahawks at 22, and then Derrick Henry, the ageless wonder, at 21 for the Baltimore Ravens. Who do we want to talk about in here? Zach Charbonnet, Jadarian Price. Let's hit these guys back to back, 29 and 22. I think Zach Charbonnet is going to be the lead back when he does get back onto the field and back up at full strength. Now, the expectations for him are that he's going to be back sooner than later. We were potentially looking at a lost season for Zach Charbonnet when the injury happened in the playoffs last year. And then now we are talking about Zach Charbonnet potentially returning as early as week 2 or week 3. Now, that timeline continues to shift and change with the latest news. I'll keep you up to date here on the YouTube channel with that. Make sure that you are liking this video. If you're tuning in here, by the way, if you're listening over on podcast, leave a 5-star rating and review. That helps me out in just a massive, massive way. So I appreciate that. Let's see if we can get to 25 likes on this video. That helps bring in new people into the channel, allows me to continue doing this. And so I appreciate you guys that are hitting the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell to get notified for when new content drops. But I think Zach Charbonnet is going to be a guy that comes back in and just takes that backfield back over. Now, maybe not to the degree that it's suddenly an 80-20 split and Jadarian Price does nothing. But I do think that Zach Charbonnet has proven, especially for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations again this year, like this is an offense that needs to trust their running back. And Jadarian Price has the talent level to be a trusted running back down the line, but he's still unproven. Very limited pass protection reps. That was one of my notes on tape watching him, was like, it's hard to get a full gauge on, because he was never on the field for third downs, right? It was always Jeremiah Love. When you have a player like Jeremiah Love at Notre Dame, you're going to get him onto the field above Jadarian Price in those situations. So limited pass catching. From what I saw, he has natural ability, but it's still a limited sample size, and so you can't fully rely on that. Like, there's just enough here with this situation where Jadarian Price has to mature and progress immediately, and I just want to bet against that because I think that's the most likely outcome. Year 2, year 3, that's a different conversation, but year 1, right out of the gate, for a team that wants to lean on the ground game to help their defense, I just don't think that Jadarian Price has that skill set within him. So I think Zach Charbonnet is going to be a factor as soon as he comes back here this year and is ready to take that workload. But then Jadarian Price will rotate in. From a dynasty angle, it is, does Zach Charbonnet get the contract extension to stay in town? Or do they lean into the fact that they spent a first-round pick on Jadarian Price? Do they see enough from him in year 1 to fully rely on him moving forward? We don't have the answer to that yet, which is why this is a split, as 7-spot difference. I think that's the thing that we're keeping an eye on here as we move throughout the year. Blake Corum, one of the best handcuff running backs in all of fantasy football. I think that if Kyron Williams goes down with an injury, Blake Corum is going to be a potential top 5 running back. So if there is a world where you can go get Blake Corum and you can afford to have him as a running back 3 or 4 on your roster and deal with some flex weeks, but if you get the upside of him being a feature back in this offense, then you're going to be in a winning situation and scenario. Josh Jacobs, we got to see this off the field situation play out. We're still waiting for further information here as I'm recording this. And so Josh Jacobs, in the meantime, going to be an effective runner, right? Going to handle a lot of volume in this offense, but the efficiency just kind of continues to dip further and further down, but he's going to get red zone opportunities, going to get the opportunity to score touchdowns. So a fine RB2, mid-range RB2 for your dynasty or for your fantasy football roster this year. Long term, that's a little bit of a different conversation, and he continues to move further and further down my board. Derrick Henry at 21, like I've talked about, just an ageless wonder until I fully see it happen, which was the stance that I had with Travis Kelce at the tight end position, right? Was like, until I see it happen, until I see the drop-off happen with my own eyes, I will continue to rank Travis Kelce as a top 5 tight end for fantasy football. It's the same with Derrick Henry. Like, I'll still keep him into that top 24 from a dynasty standpoint. You're going to get 1 to 2 really, really good years left. And after that, going to kind of see that drop off begin to happen, which is why he's a little bit further down here in the Dynasty rankings. Let's go into the top 20. Let's start to move through this a little bit quicker. Javonte Williams at 20 for the Dallas Cowboys, just going to handle a ton of volume in a very good offense. Bucky Irving at 19 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Travis Achan for the New Orleans Saints at 18. Kyron Williams at 17 for the Los Angeles Rams. Cam Scatterbo for the New York Giants at 16. We'll talk about him in just a second. Christian McCaffrey at 15 for the San Francisco 49ers, getting towards the end of his career. Travion Henderson at 14 for the New England Patriots. Quinshon Judkins at 13 for the Cleveland Browns. Saquon Barkley at 12 for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then Chase Brown for the Cincinnati Bengals at 11. Bucky Irving, I've talked about as a running back to fade here this year. I think that we could see a true three-man rotation in this backfield for Tampa Bay, and that concerns me. Bucky Irving, just an outlier in terms of his size and handling the type of workload that he did in his rookie year. We saw injuries pile up for him last year. That's going to be something to watch here as we go into this year. Do they try to keep him a little bit lighter on the touches? And do we see, Sean Tucker rotate in more with the goal line opportunities, and then Kenneth Gainwell is going to play a big role in this offense as a receiver out of the backfield. There's a non-zero chance that Kenneth Gainwell just completely takes the feature role away from Bucky Irving this year. It's in the realm of possibilities. Kyron Williams at 17, I think he just continues to hold on to this lead role in this offense. Now, you do have Blake Corum breathing down his neck, and they're going to form a dangerous 1-2 punch. So you got to kind of factor that in. Kyron Williams, the age where you still can rely on him moving forward. It's just going to be at what point, or do the Los Angeles Rams shift this backfield to go to Blake Corum on a cheaper contract, let Kyron Williams go? They're going to have to start thinking about that with all the money that they've got with Myles Garrett and trying to bring Aaron Donald back and all this sort of stuff. And then also the factor of Matthew Stafford, 1 to 2 years left in his NFL career. Like, at what point do they turn to Ty Simpson and the offense takes a dramatic drop off? And they're not going to be in the red zone as frequently when that happens. When you go from a very, very raw quarterback out of Alabama to, and moving from a Hall of Famer in Matthew Stafford, like, at what point does that happen? And so you got to kind of play that game here with Kyron Williams. Cam Scatterbo, they brought in Najee Harris just yesterday, signed him to a 1-year deal here to be the backup to Cam Scatterbo and Tyrone Tracy. I think that this is just a depth piece. I'm not super concerned about Cam Scatterbo and him losing, the feature role in this offense or anything like that. Tyrone Tracy is going to factor in as a pass catcher out of the backfield. But Najee Harris, I think, is just a depth signing. You do not let, Najee Harris in mid-August, still sitting on the free agent market, to be a player that you suddenly bring in and be like, yeah, he's going to take over the main role from Cam Scatterbo or take away significant work. Scatterbo, when he's fully healthy, is a much better talent than Najee Harris. So from last year, from weeks 3 through 8 in 2025, Cam Scatterbo was the RB3 in all of fantasy football, averaging 16.8 fantasy points per contest. He suffered a dislocated ankle, tibia fracture, and ruptured deltoid ligament in week 8. So he's working his way back from that. From everything that we've seen, though, in training camp, he is looking fully healthy. So we'll monitor that as we move forward. Chase Brown at 11, a player that is just going to be very, very solid. He is a really, really good running back. He's not an elite running back. He plays in a great offense. And so from a fantasy standpoint, he's going to continue to put up just reliable, solid production week in, week out. You have to worry about eventually, does he, get moved on from this offense? Do they go cheaper because they've got that investment at the wide receiver spots and at the quarterback with Joe Burrow? Something to keep in mind there. But Chase Brown, for the time being, knowing the information that we know now, needs to be a top 12 dynasty running back. Into the top 10 we will go with Breece Hall here at 10 for the New York Jets, Kenneth Walker for the Kansas City Chiefs at 9, James Cook for the Buffalo Bills at 8, Jonathan Taylor at 7 for the Indianapolis Colts at 27 years old already, Amarian Hampton at 6 for the Los Angeles Chargers, Devon Achane at 5 for Miami, Jeremiah Love at 4 for the Arizona Cardinals. Then we go Ashton Genty, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Bijan Robinson into that top 3. Not a ton to break down here. Kenneth Walker, I think, has the potential to finish as the overall RB1 in fantasy football this year. Durability is going to be the concern. And we have seen, how many times have we seen Kenneth Walker on the injury report, throughout his NFL career up to this point. So that's with not handling as massive of a workload as he's going to see here this year. So that's something to keep in mind as we talk about Kenneth Walker and we're getting super excited for what he can be in this offense, it's like we also just need to pump the brakes just a little bit, right? This is a talented player, ridiculously talented. And if he does stay healthy for all 17 games, he legitimately could compete with Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs for the RB1 in fantasy football this year. I don't think anyone's really arguing that, but we do have to think about the durability concerns for him. Jonathan Taylor, going to be a massive producer over the next 2 to 3 years, and that's kind of the range that we need to be playing Dynasty in, that 2 to 3 year window. So don't have a ton of concerns for him here within the top 7. Just got to bump him down a little bit just because of the age. Amari and Hampton at 6, I think, is another player that could absolutely compete for the RB1 overall spot in fantasy football this year in this offense. Devon Achane, a player that I'm concerned about here for this next year. But if we do see this offense take a step forward in 2027, then Devon Achane is going to get right back to producing. You do have to at least take into account the Mike McDaniel departure. Jeremiah Love at 4, dealing with a high ankle sprain at the time of recording, but is going to be out there for week 1, are the expectations right now. And I think that you do have to downgrade him slightly here for this year with the state of the offense in Arizona and what they're going to be able to produce. You do have Tyler Algier, which appears to be a significant part of the coaching staff's plans for the Arizona Cardinals offense this year. So it's going to be a situation to monitor, and maybe we don't get Jeremiah Love with 300 plus touches here in 2026, but 21 years old, a very, very talented prospect. In my mind, not a generational prospect, but a very, very good one. I do think still needs to be ranked behind players like Ashton Jeanty, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Bijan Robinson, though. Not a ton to break down here with those top 3. Ashton Jeanty, a much better situation. I'm taking essentially everything from his rookie year, kind of throwing it out the window. There was the situation could not have been worse for Ashton Jeanty last year with the coaching, with the offensive line, with the quarterback play. I mean, go on and on and on. Really just couldn't have been worse. And from what I saw on tape for him at Boise State, a generational prospect. And I think that he's going to prove a lot of people wrong here this year. A player that I don't know if necessarily will compete for the RB1 overall in 2026. I think the offense is going to hold him back from that, but going to be a top 5 running back, in my opinion, here this year. All right, that is my Dynasty running back rankings here as we sit in mid-August. Thanks so much for tuning in and checking out this video. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell to get notified for when new content drops. If you are over on podcast, make sure that you're leaving a 5-star rating and review. Helps me out, helps other people know about the show and know about my work here. And then make sure to go over to the Substack. That's where you're getting the newsletter delivered to your inbox 5 days a week. 3 of those are free if you want to sign up, but 2 of those are premium content that you can get for $5 a month, along with access to my Start Set Optimizer, Dynasty Trade Calculator, premium rankings, premium projections. There's a whole ton of stuff in there. So make sure to check that out. The link for that is here in the YouTube description or over in your podcast description. Appreciate you guys tuning in. That'll do it for me. I'll be back soon with another video. Until next time, take care.